Marooned on Triton.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Marooned on Triton, but, well, different. Obviously, in the last episode, I was gallivanting across the ice fields on my way to Destiny. Now I'm here in a studio set of my base. So this is sort of a background, what they call that, behind the scenes episode. I'm doing this now because I realized next episode is the finale. You maybe think I knew that beforehand, but nope, I discovered it. Yeah, these things happen sometimes. With the next episode being the finale, I want to have some more time to work on it. So, this week I'm going to be doing sort of a retrospective, going back to the very beginning and working my way up, similar to what I did for the 50th anniversary of Adventures in Space, which was my previous Space Engineers Let's Play series that wasn't very good. The final episode of Marooned on Triton will be airing not next week, but the week after. So there will be a 1 week gap where there will be no new content from me so that I can work on making the finale actually exciting and, dramatic and good. Uh, yeah. So I guess I'll just hop into it and take a walk down memory lane. So, here I have the backups from the beginning of this series. A difference between this and when I've done this previously is I intended this from the beginning. I didn't know exactly when I was going to do it, but I kind of had the idea of I want to save the content so that I can go back and, relive everything. So every 5 episodes, starting with episode 5. I figured the very first one probably wasn't all that exciting, considering it was mostly just getting basics established. I guess it could have been interesting to see where I was at the very first episode, but you can also go back and watch all the episodes, which I highly recommend doing. So how this is going to work, I'm just going to hop into these and I don't know, look around, see what I was doing, see what I had at that point, and let inspiration strike me as it will. So yeah, let's go right on back to the beginning. Hope everything loads, and see what we have and what we got going. Okay. So this is how episode 5 loaded in, except for it was nighttime, and I've fixed that. What do I have? Oh, wow. So those first 5 episodes, I made a lot more progress than I remembered. So, God, when everything was teal. So yeah, this is the base. This is whoa. This is the very beginning of the cave. When it was just a little bumpy divot. I'm sure some of the people who have begun rewatching or have begun watching the series more recently are aware of what's going on here. I guess maybe I built the initial part of this rig and am rebuilding it. I don't know why it's all torn down. Uh, I'm sure I had a reason for that. But yeah, this was the first little proto base. Well, I guess the second. This was the remains of the first little proto base with what ended up being the first base battery. This one battery survived the entire series. This is the one that's actually no, I think I did grind it down. Uh okay, scratch that. But this survived a lot longer because this was the battery that was in the floor once I had the actual cave built. See, I kind of thought I'd still be either like out in the initial little ice hovel thing that this was, or, I don't know. I did no research beforehand, and it's been like over a year since I recorded some of these, so God only knows what happened back then. This was that unknown signal that I salvaged that then turned into the thruster of the hovercraft. Wow. This blew up several times. I think I found some more. No, I found drone parts. Maybe this didn't. No, yeah, I'm pretty sure this was the original engine bit. I think that survived up until the end of that vehicle. And then, who can forget the most unexpected little tow vehicle, the mighty crane rocket buggy mobile with a little reversing camera. I forgot that. That's silly. I think I put this on. Yes, I put this on because this this strange boat thing was a rover. After it became a building, then it became a rover, and then I pulled it with my car by driving the car backwards to drag it over here. Had the joys of engineering when you don't have an infinite amount of resources. And all this basically, and this was more or less the standard design up until the base as it is now. This kind of thing stuck around a while. Okay, so I've gone into Spectator, and I think this is the initial crash site. Yeah, with my little stone cave. I feel like I want to, even though, the crash isn't here, I'll take the opportunity here to talk about this. So, this was sort of my initial idea for this series when I was first coming up with it. Funnily enough, my initial idea was to create a series that would encourage me to try and build a mining rover, because I wanted to build a deep ore mining rover. I never tried that, and that's because I did it on Ship of the Week, that second episode, which I think is the most popular episode on my channel. Ooh, there goes a cargo ship real quick up there. Yeah. That vehicle, deep rig mining rover that I could have built a lot better, let's be honest. I kind of screwed myself from the beginning. But that was the initial seedling of an idea that led to Marooned on Triton. And I never got to it in the series because it stopped making sense once I drilled an underground base, which was another thing I kind of wanted to do. But back to this initial crash, you can see I painted some of the terrain, did a little bit of detailing, and I wanted to give myself a unique story start. Go ahead and just drop this in so we have the context. So I wanted a unique story start, and I'd actually already made that intro ship. I think I'd already made the whole intro before I filmed the first episode. So I was thinking, well, I was experimenting with different ideas for a little drop pod, yacht, space thingy that I could crash in and have everything you need, but not be in just a generic drop pod. Tell a little bit of a story. And I'd already made my intro, and I had the little rocket ship thumbnail, clip arty thing I made in that, which, little aside there, I made everything in the intro, if you couldn't tell by the fine art. And that background being, looking like it was made by a toddler with crayons. That was an intentional choice. It was not me being completely inept. I just wanted, I don't know. I thought it set the tone well for what the series was going to roughly be in my head at the time when I made it. Yeah. That, and then I had the rocket idea, and I was like, I wonder if I can recreate that in Space Engineers and use that as my crash. So, thus the Rocket 68 was born, which and I think I've used... Yeah, so I have the respawn variant, and then I actually have a useful variant that if I spawn it in here and then spawn myself in, this one actually has thrust in every direction. It can fly on planets, albeit and not for long. Yeah, I think I used this I think I added it to my sort of respawn mod that I made the tutorial of. though I added this after the tutorial. But yeah, so that's sort of the story of the start of the series, and this little ship I created and some of the other, yeah, just the little things at the beginning, since we're at the beginning. Alright, next up is episode 10, so 5 episodes beyond the start of our tunnel. I betcha, well, I don't know. My guess is that there's going to be a surprising lack of progress. Because once I started that tunnel excavation, it took forever. It was a lot longer than I expected it to be, which that was probably on me because I was creating a massive hole in a mountain by hand. That takes some time. I guess it wasn't by hand, but you know, it was not a fast thing to expect to be able to do. And I kind of, got distracted. There was a lot of fumbling about as I tried to figure out how to engineer things, because, little side note, I don't know what I'm doing. I've just played this game a lot. Actually, I mean, again, not a ton, but a bit more progress. Oh, hold up. Oh, so I did find another one of those. Okay. So, we can see this base is still here, that we had in the last one. I think I added this engine and the, bed, and you can tell because they're a different color. I decided to tone down the teal at some stage, I suppose. Yeah, we've got the, hover barge here. I guess the second iteration. So a fun story with this. This hover barge I actually designed off camera, because I realized if I spent forever fiddling with it, I mean, sure, that could be interesting content, but it was probably just going to be a bunch of me going like, and I ended up having Ship of the Week to do that with. I think this episode would have been before that started. But anyway, I did some experimenting in a creative world, partially because, so the initial hovercraft design, I had the wheels facing down, which in my head, and I also used 1x1s, which in my head makes more sense because, you want, if I have wheels in this orientation, it's just a car. What's the point of the hover bit? And I still kind of agree with that on a conceptual design and gameplay standpoint. But in my experimenting, I found having the wheels pointing down, causes a lot more handling problems than just having the wheels look like wheels. And part of that is because, so Space Engineer's wheels are a little weird in that the collision itself is a sphere, but they only have springing along sort of this up-down axis, which makes sense with how the block looks. So when you have the wheels pointing down, it's just a solid, sphere. It may not have any friction, but it also has no give. So any bump in the ground, any bump into something that isn't along the springable axis, it just kind of bounces you. And when you're traveling over, voxelized terrain at speed, you can hit a non-existent, non-visible bump that's microscopic. It's enough to send you bouncing all over the place, and it just makes the vehicle not handle well. With the wheels in this orientation, where the springing force is what's hitting the ground, like a normal suspension, you're still sort of skating along, but you have that suspension force, you have that spring, and that makes the whole thing work. So that was sort of the birth of this vehicle and why I so immediately redesigned it. Partially that, and partially I realized the main purpose of this was going to be moving things about. So I wanted something that, had the cargo arm and had a good place to put the stuff it was bringing, so I wasn't just dangling stuff off the arm and, creating top heaviness. We've also started, I can see our scrap pile by this point, and we have our gun up. I wonder, I just looked up in I actually have the playlist open of all the Marooned on Triton videos. So this episode was called Sweet Sweet Salvage. So this is probably the episode where I got these drones and brought them here and this thing. Now it is with these saves, these are mostly saved right at. This is the last save before I move to the next episode. So this is at the end of episode 10, the state of the game. I will warn you of the viewers, some of these you may catch where, it's not the end of the episode you remember, and part of that could be because, some hilarious goof happened off camera that I edited out and reverted the timeline. That happened once or twice. And sometimes I just forget, because I'd record, 3 episodes in one day back to back. It may actually be the end of episode 11 because I forgot to save an episode 11, in my thing, and it's saved over, that sort of. You get the gist, I'm sure. Comment if you're hopelessly confused. It looks like this is actually mid-move. So this would be, I think there was just the one. So I moved all this stuff here from my original crash site. Then I drilled the big hole with all these pistons. Then I moved the whole structure inside. And this was the base. Yeah, this is it. This was the base as it stayed for many, many episodes as I drilled the rest of the place, started building the ground in there, and, building it into a platform on which I could build my new base. Yeah, so I built the cargo containers and I started hand ferrying everything, and that sucked. And I think in the last few episodes, or in the next few episodes from this, we may not see it. I think that was why I built the cargo box originally, because I had my hover barge, which was, capable of moving, but it doesn't have any cargo on it. And I needed something to take all the cargo out of this, all the stuff that I'd mined, mining out this. I needed to move that inside. Now, in hindsight, and I'm just seeing this now, I could have extended these pistons, moved this drill right next to that cargo container, and then just hand done it. Wow. Well, sometimes you have the best ideas a year after the fact. Episode 15 was foggy and ominous, which makes sense because this was the episode, one where I smashed the front end of the vehicle somewhere. Don't remember that. But this is the handgun. Yeah, I don't think I ever used this. Did I ever? Does it even have? Okay, it does have bullets. Let's, I need to be able to see things. Okay, I have some control. Okay, this is control of the hand. Look at me go. Oh. Oh, it does not. Oh, it was inverted. No, it's just because this is at a weird angle. Yeah, this was, I don't know. I don't think it was a good idea, but it was definitely an idea and I did it. Yeah, good old handgun. That was one thing, I guess touch on it now. So, the BuddyBot mod that I created for this series, which, spoilers I guess, is I created it as a mod. So it was a tough balance. I wanted there to be some combat in this series. I wanted to get attacked, but I didn't want it to be so constant and debilitating that it would cause me an issue. And honestly, I think I went a little too soft on myself. I should have I should have made it a little bit more violent, maybe had them actually, come seek me out every so often. Just because I think that would have added some more drama and some more excitement, and I could have controlled it manually in the recording end. Like, say I'm in the middle of something and a wave spawns in, I just stop, get rid of the wave, get back to what I was doing for, the sake of the story. And it's an interesting thing designing specifically with the idea of telling a story, because you have to think about things like that. It gives you a lot of control over, you know, I am writing this timeline, and while it is reactionary, I don't know what's going to happen. If it's not something I like, and it's something that I feel harms my ability to continue that story, I can change it. It's almost a dangerous power because, I can make it too easy, and then it's kind of, the buddy bots aren't really a threat. They're sort of an superimposed, oh, they're the reason I'm here ish in the story. I don't know. That's something, if I could go back and if I, well, I'm probably going to do other series in the future, but probably different than this. But if I were to go back and redo this, I think I'd make the buddy bots tougher so that I needed stuff like this, some janky defense solution to fight them off while on the go. I think that's one thing this series was missing. Now let's see. Ooh. Okay, so I've started to get a paved floor. Well, quote unquote. I guess it's not paved, it's made out of metal, and it's also girders at the moment. But I've got a floor. Oh, the drills are running. Oh, and this was this is the janky drill mechanism setup that ended up it sort of desynced with itself. I think that's in a future episode. Well, I can tell you the next one is the drilling episode that we're looking at, so it might be that one. Oh no, I know what that one is, but this was a lot of fun to design. The issue is, Space Engineers is weird with forces and subgrids. And hinges and pistons are actually pretty reliable. Pistons, they'll kind of do what they're meant to do. Hinges and rotors, they're a little tricky. Because they don't... it depends on how the game calculates how much force and how much mass is in the subgrid to try and move with the hinges. And that's all based on game ticks that don't always update, consistently. It's just a whole big thing that creates a weird black box of not knowing exactly how things are going to behave. And it makes complex setups like this, where there's, arcing motions, kind of tricky, because it's not necessarily, this hinge, depending on how you have it set up, this hinge may only see the weight of this hinge, so this one moves much more freely. This hinge is trying to rotate all the drills, so it moves slower than that one, even though, logically they'd both be supporting the same amount of weight. It's a very complex thing I barely understand, but that's sort of the idea. And despite its slight jankiness, this did work. I mean, it drilled the tunnel. This was it. So, I guess until I started using explosives. Right. So the drilling episode. Now, I don't know for sure. Oh, actually, what am I doing here? I guess I've decided to widen out. I don't remember why I did this. I'm widening out the tunnel. I guess depth. I think this is the point where the tunnel ends and I started blasting. And I'm pretty sure this episode started with a time lapse of, I think the drills were here. Well, I guess that was 5 episodes ago. I don't know, but I think this was one of my time lapse episodes, which I do enjoy making those. I don't know if you guys like them, but I find them fun. They are a bit of a challenge because I just have the one perspective, and I don't have a good way to do a second. I actually use two computers for recording. I have the computer that's running the game Space Engineers, and then I have a laptop. Actually, I don't think I had the laptop when this episode was recorded. So there was a point at which I got the laptop, And then the recordings probably became slightly better because I wasn't trying to record on the same machine that was running the game. So, little side note, but I could do a second, a second camera, quote unquote, with a second account and second player character, but then I'd be running the game on the recording machine again, and that'll slow down the recording, and I just make do. I do see, so we have the Skytrike here, which, yeah, it's not the final version because it doesn't have its guns, but yeah, I don't remember what else changed. I think I wrecked it at some point, in this state and then put guns on, maybe? It's hard to remember. But yeah, funnily enough, this is a vehicle, at this stage of the game we have the 1x1 wheels. This would have been a vehicle that would have really benefited from those smaller wheels and smaller wheelbase things, because it's much easier to get these centered. And that was the big pain with this, is you can see the wheel, like the inner edge of the wheel is on the center line of the vehicle. It didn't affect too much because this was mainly flying, but I don't know. It's one of those things you just had to deal with. Yeah, that was a fun little car. I think best immortalized in the non-canon outside of universe holiday Christmas special, but very fun time. And we also have the very first iteration of the ice machine, which I think this iteration actually did fairly well. It survived to a degree. It did spend most of its life sat over in that corner because I dumped it there and then blew up the thing that can move it. But nah, it's not got any ice in. I may have just built this, who knows? Well, I know where we are. So, this is, we'll leave it dark. It's more moody that way. So, welcome to Season 2 of Marooned on Triton. And Season 2 began with the crash, which was... Or no, not the crash. What did I call it? The call. Which was a crash of a ship up in space that was unknown to me, assisting me, and then called. And so this whole episode was essentially, I decided I'd hit a point where I was like, okay, I'm in a bit of a rut. I need something to pull the story back into story. I need to have something going on, some plot. So this was, the series of episodes. There were 3 of these, I think. Yeah, these were all plot episodes. So the call, I went out, traveled halfway around the planet to the crash site. Then I got to the crash site, searched around, read all the little things that were basically like, hey, here's some background of what's going on. Here's, something to maybe give my character a little bit of a personal feeling of, okay, I have to do this. Because, again, as I talked about earlier, the buddy bots were more just a slight nuisance. It was like having mosquitoes out. It's like, they're there and they're annoying, but they aren't really a threat. You just kind of, wear bug spray and you don't have to deal with them. So I needed something to make my character actually care about them being the enemy. So I was like, well, what if, here are some friends who were sending the drop pods, which that's a fun little thing I'll get into in a second. Here are some friends doing that. They've been helping me out, and they've gotten shot down by these guys. Now I have some more personal, like, okay, they are a threat, even if they aren't being a threat to me. And on the drop pod thing, you may well have noticed, since this episode, since the beginning of Season 2, I haven't been getting unknown signals. There are no unknown signals in Marooned on Triton from this point on. I went in and from this episode on, I turned them off. That was partially for story, partially because I realized how I'd set up the BuddyBot drones, they'd go after the unknown signals. They didn't like them. That's why I made that part of the plot a bit. uh, it was causing issues because all of a sudden I'd have buddy bots zipping about, blowing up unknown signals, and crashing into things, and it was just creating a bunch of mess. There were several times through the series, like every through few episodes, I'd go into the entity list, which actually I betcha. If I go in here, entity list, ignore these. So you can see all this stuff. These are all just drones. Yeah, that one's just sitting here. And I've lost it because spectator camera is very quick. Oh, and I'm on the wrong keys. That doesn't help. But essentially, I'd just have drones flying around crashing, and they'd start to slow things down because they're just sitting there. Or the wreckage of them. I tried to leave some, but at a certain point I was like, well, I don't really have to go out exploring as much as I'd hoped I would in this series. So I don't really, I'm not going to come across them as salvage, so I might as well just delete them. Aside from all that I've gone through, there's not too much to see here. I mean, this was my little panic escape vehicle because my last one got, oh, that's something to talk about for sure. The blowing up of the hover barge. I didn't script or plan that. That was, well, I say no. I didn't intend to get the hover barge destroyed, but I wanted to be attacked. So I did spawn in those drones, but I didn't think about the fact that they were going to probably target my vehicle first and wipe it out. I wanted it to be a shootout because I had that turret repaired on the main ship, or I knew there was a turret and I intended to repair it. It may have been broken when I started. But, yeah, that sequence didn't quite play out because they just wiped the floor with the hover barge, and then I was like, oh god, now I have no way home. That was actually a lot of fun to have to figure out, okay, I need to scavenge what I can from this place, get, enough parts to build something that can get my engineer home, because I didn't want to respawn. I mean, I could have just died and then I would have been back at base and all would have been good. But I wanted the drama of now I've got to get home, you know. So, yeah, the beginning of this series was this season was a lot of fun. Oh, okay. I didn't expect to come into an episode welding. Uh, though I'm already seeing a lot to discuss. So this is episode 30, which is the silver run, was the silver run. I believe, I mean, there's already a lot here. I believe in the last episode I'd had the base. I should have flown back to the base and checked it. That would have been smart, but oh well, I'm already past that. Uh, yeah, I have a lot going on here. Let's have, well, light doesn't help us much. So, yeah, this is the cave finished. I have the whole floor down here. If I'm right, my guess based on what's going on is this is the episode where I welded all this up. And I think this actually aired at the beginning of the next episode. So as a time lapse, I did all this stuff moving around. If I remember right, I actually... So a downside of this, and a downside of... I am someone who enjoys music, and specifically enjoys music accompanying actions, and actions that are, choreographed to the music to a degree. So as I was doing this welding, I was listening to music just, as I went, and then recording it for the time lapse. But I was listening to ABBA's Waterloo, which is a very fun song, and just the pacing of it with the welding, it was perfect. I could see in my head the vision of the perfect time lapse of welding a floor to that song. And obviously I can't just use it because I don't own the rights. That's a whole big deal. I'd have to find a way to buy rights, and you know, I prefer to use I use stuff from the YouTube audio library, which is a very useful and convenient source of music license for use on YouTube. It isn't strictly royalty free. If you go and use it on Twitch, you may get pinged for it, but you can use it in any YouTube video for free. The system automatically links to, like, this is the song that was used into this, and it's just a nice little system, and there's a lot of good stuff on there. So, no Waterloo Welding soundtrack. Maybe I'll re-release that at some point if I ever, come across the right to use Waterloo by ABBA in a video. But yeah, that was a fun little thing from that sequence. We've got Humpty, our welding monstrosity. This is before he grew his third elongating arm, which, I mean, really, this is kind of the right vehicle, but that arm made him the best vehicle. There was so much good that came from that arm, in terms of content, not in terms of handling. But yeah, this was actually a pretty effective little vehicle, and it's stuck around. I've used it for cargo. I mean, it's obviously still there, so good to see him in his early form. We have the ice machine thrown unceremoniously in its corner. Then we have the battle-ready Skytrike with its guns. That's what was missing from the back, was the connector. Yeah, so I can't remember. I may have done this specifically because the hover barge with its handgun blew up, and so I was like, okay, well, I need something to be able to defend myself. And I figured, well, let's just put guns on the Scout. And this is one of those vehicles I actually used in combat. In fact, it died in combat. A very unceremonious death. So, maybe not unceremonious. It was definitely dramatic. It's fun to see this in its final form. At some point, heck, maybe with this episode, I may post some of these to the workshop just so, people have them if they want them just to play around with. I mean, it's not a complex design, but yeah, a little bit of fun. I do love that you can just do that. Yeah, so then we get down. There's actually more going on here than I thought there would be. Though, I mean, obviously all this stuff is just as it is now, more or less. There's some extra junk back behind there. I think, yeah, I don't have the engine yet. No engine. But, yeah, all this kind of stays the same. Obviously this moves at some point. That cargo container goes away because I realized one cargo container holds an ungodly amount of stuff. Yeah, if I'm right, the sort of crowning achievement of this episode was getting this medbay built, because I had to go and get more silver, which meant I had to go out to the silver mine, which is there, which isn't far away. But yeah, I mean, all this even stayed in this spot, partially because it was already piped and easy. But yeah, this is going to be like this for a long while. Holiday Christmas special. Oh, I'm actually in position for the thumbnail. Let's time the time. This was... oh boy, let's talk about this. So, the Holiday Christmas special, it came about because I realized, so I upload these on Sundays, and the Sunday that this episode went live was December 25th, which is, for those of you who don't celebrate, Christmas Day. I was like, I gotta do something. That's just perfect. And so I came up with, let's get a little bit more speed out of that. One, I went on to Workshop and found some Christmas mods to Christmas up the place. The intro, I think the reason I love this episode so much, the actual episodes, It's about like any other. But that intro was just magical. It was the perfect with the music. Coming down here, and it was just great. I still go back and watch that sometimes. But yeah, this whole series thing came about because it was the time. Oh, I didn't want to be like that. Oh, I've wrecked Santa's sleigh. Yeah, it was just the perfect timing. I wanted to do a little bit of fun something or another. I wanted it to be just a self-contained little adventure that I could do. Something easy, a little bit of challenge. I don't know if the buddy bots are loaded in this particular map. They may not be set to spawn. I can't remember. But yeah, it was just sort of a little thing. I built all the little houses to go to. They each had a little challenge of some sort. I don't know. It was just a lovely little self-contained thing. In a long form series like this, where a lot of what you're doing is kind of just designing a large thing, building this base has kind of been the thing I did in this series. It gets kind of boring after a while. It gets tiring, and you're like, okay, well, I've done the same thing for like 10 episodes. It's nice to mix it up, have a little change of pace. Yeah, it was a good time. All right, back to sort of canon main reality. This episode, what's going on? This was a thirst for adventure. Let me see something. Okay, we have not yet lost the Skytrike. I think we're getting close. I don't remember where that falls exactly. But, oh no, that's when we lost the Skytrike in the battle for the big ship. That cargo bot that then became the skyship. So, Skytrike is still here. I don't know what's going on here. There's a drone crashed. I guess let's just kind of go back and take a peek around. So I've gotten more of this welded. In fact, I've gotten most all of it welded, including the beams on top. I'm starting what will become the entryway with the wind turbines. I've got the tower, which I think was here in the last episode, or last little bit we just looked at. It's kind of been plumbed in for a while, but that was basically the last thing on one of the last things on the base I did. It was this and then the actual building. In fact, I think this may have been the event that prompted me to push. Yeah, and I can see, because funnily enough, the next episode we'll look at, episode 40, is when I finish the defense tower. And I think this close to home attack was the thing. And actually, okay, so this is an interesting point in the development of the series. So this is one of the BuddyBot Mark IIs. And I can't remember exactly when I switched them, but I had an original design for the BuddyBot drone. The original Scout Bot was weaker. It was this little egg fellow. And I think I wanted to up the danger by having them be more of a threat, because these things basically would just dive into the ground, and that was their main attack. There were some, MES is a little tricky, and pathing, it's tough stuff. But yeah, the Mark II, that's it. So I got rid of its forward-facing guns and gave it a turret. This corpse reflects, and I think this actually started at the very beginning of Season 2, now that I think about it, because that was the same time I added the Inquisitors, which are nasty fellas. That was sort of an upping of the stakes by making the enemies stronger, so that I'd have to be, dealing with them more. And I sort of changed some tweaks to their AI. They're actually based off of the MES Reavers. So I did some changes to make them come to me more, find me, and attack me more often. Just, upping the danger a bit. Oh, there's some interesting changes here. So it looks like we've actually started, and this is how the bridge was for quite some time, actually. It took me a long while to weld up these side bits. Yeah, we've got the bridge and the beginnings. Yeah, this was the elevator when it still had the button. This elevator, this is a cool thing I did. I enjoyed this. Uh just the fact that it was able to fit up out of such a small hole, the fact that it works so well, and honestly just the fact that I used it. Because so often in Space Engineers, you can build a cool engineering thing, but unless you engineer it in such a way that you have to use it, you'll just take a ramp because it's easier and quicker. I liked that I made this the only way to get vehicles up and down, that I had to drive stuff on and off. The automating it helped a lot. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything's changed over there, so mainly just elevator and a bunch of welding. So this is episode 40. Oh, right, so this is allegedly the defense tower. So I can see that I've got the elevator automated. Let's, don't know where this drone carcass came from. Oh, and the crane. Ah, good old crane that broke like 2 episodes in. Uh, for unrelated reasons. So that's actually, I don't think I've fully addressed it. I've kind of alluded to the third person simulation calculator computers not working right in the whatevers, technobabble junk. So what happened was like 2 episodes after I built this crane, Keen released an update that broke a part of it changed how the turret controllers worked so that when you're in a turret controller, unless you're looking through a camera, your viewpoint is fixed. So it used to be that, like in a cockpit, so if I go to third person in a cockpit, I can hold down Alt and I can move my vision around. That was how the crane was designed to work. I'd be in third person, I'd be controlling the turret, and then I could, position the camera in such a way that I could see where I was moving it. Well, whatever update Keen did, made that no work no more. So I'll have to, how do I drive this thing? That's how. Oh, and wouldn't be the crane if I didn't. I guess they want the turrets to be used with a camera like the turrets should. Like you'd expect. And if you don't have a turret and try and do things like this, I don't know why that's an issue, or if it's just something they aren't worried about fixing because it's not the main purpose. But yeah, that broke because it's broken. So we'll, drive our way up, since the one downside of having the elevator automated like this is I have to use a vehicle to get up it. Ooh. Okay, so there's some more to look at up here. I mean, I guess I knew that, but yeah, so at this stage of the game, we have taken down the big ship and started bringing back some of its thrusters. Right, that's why we have the crane vehicle. It's because that was what, I think? I built this to haul stuff back. I don't remember what stuff, but we've clearly done that, which means the Skytrike is no more. Humpty has his big ol' welding arm attached. And we have... How much of the inside of this did I build? We clearly have the ladder up into the turret tower. This episode was called... What was it? Called Tower Defenses. So, turret tower built, essentially. And I clearly don't have quite everything. Though actually, I have more than I thought. Here's outside. So I've not done the very top. I think I actually did the top in between episodes. So that's probably after this. But I've got the repair welders in. I thought that was added after I built this. Heck, maybe it was, like, maybe I built most in this last episode, thought about these and stuck them in. But yeah, that's obviously not 100%, but this was the point in which we had, you know, proper base defense turrets. No offense to the little turret outpost down there that served us quite well for a long time. So yet again, we start one of these at the corpse of a drone with a... Oh, okay, there goes that steel plate. Yeah. So I did at this stage, you know, the changes to the buddy bots, and part of it was... Oh no, they took out our defense tower that I was just praising last episode. I think I remember that happening. Well, I mean, it happened because this is the past, but... Ow. I kind of upped the difficulty, upped the danger a bit, because I realized I was having... I was not being threatened enough. And I figured it made some canonical and story sense. You know, my reasoning behind that was when I crashed, the buddy bot AI hive mind thing, they shoot down ships that come too close, but they don't tend to expect survivors, at least not long-term ones, so they don't really care. They've got their patrols to scout anything out. My kind of going, hiding underground and all that, my sort of in my head canon was that I'd essentially hid from the buddy bots. They didn't really know my operation was here. No scouts had wandered over here and made it away. So I was like, okay, yeah, you know, it makes sense they aren't really going after me. Then when the call happened and I went and fought several of them, I think some did survive that encounter, or I don't know. My theory was that, okay, I'm going to up the difficulty because now they know I'm here. Now I have poked them in a way that they're like, okay, there is someone here who is a threat. So, hence a little bit more danger, not a ton. Still, I could have gone even harder, but yeah. Oh, we have Ice Machine Mark 2-3- whatever, which, judging by the wheel squat, is full of ice. So this is all pre-automation update, so I'd not added event controllers and whatnot yet. That really changed the game. I mean, the game of Space Engineers and the game of this series and what I could do with the vehicles. Just because it made, I don't know, the idea of automating stuff. I'm going heavily with it because I have a drone swarm. I'm going to throw at an enemy. So, yeah, no. I was able to work well with that. Ooh. Yeah, we'll just... The old-fashioned way. So we've got our two little ground vehicles here. We have the... Oh, right. I remember this awkward landing. We managed to park the skyship, which has not got its guns. I think this was... So this was the skyship modified to be the drill. Does that mean... No, I've not started the launch tube. I'm about to start the launch tube. I don't know the name of this episode because the my window with the playlist in it only shows 9 videos. So, one moment. So this was the episode Thinking About Holes, which I guess means that I've started thinking about the hole and not begun it yet. But that's what this is set up to do, clearly. Not too much else has changed. I do have the pipe connecting these 2 levels and all my parking spots, which I don't think I've seen yet in time. Ah, yes. So, this was a penultimate episode. This is episode 50, Relay Results. So, I found a relay, which So funnily enough, these have been in the game since the very beginning, since I first added the BuddyBot mod. These were here to be found, and my original plan for the sort of story, you can see the air quotes, but there were some. My original plan was to have these be essentially, as I was traveling around exploring the world, I'd run into these things and, fight them, take them on at the behest of Hall, and that would be how I'd slowly gain information and eventually find the location of the BuddyBots HQ to go and take it out. I did not see one of these spawn in the MES spawner until this one. It was all the various sort of habitation modules. I probably balanced it wrong. There's a setting where you can tell it, like, spawn these the X amount of often. Part of it was I just didn't actually explore that much. I did try every so often I'd be like, I'm tired of whatever, I'm going exploring. And those episodes, the whole goal was to go out and get spawns so I'd find one of these. It just took longer, so I was like, screw it, one of them, done, BuddyBot HQ. Because this was 50 episodes in. This was a fun episode just because there was combat, there was battle, there was stuff going on. So I'm pretty sure I flew here in the skyship because I was scouting the world with the skyship. Found this, took it out, tried to go in on foot, and got shot to death. Then I made like a temporary little rover thing to drive out to this wrecked drone, then added bits to it so I could fly the drone and attack stuff with it, and didn't do a good job. I don't know. There was a lot of substance to this episode, and I feel like that's actually a pretty cool shot. Yeah. I feel like this one was a good time. Okay. So this is a fun spot. Go ahead and...
Fuel critical.
Okay, I think something's screwed up there.
Fuel critical.
Right, we'll pretend we didn't just break that. Oh. Oh. No, I know what's happening. So, the reason everything is flickering so badly, I don't... Ow. So this episode I was out of power. I think this happened after the episode, when I was... Oh, the ice truck is trying desperately to lift its drills. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't remember if this was in the video or not, but... Oh, in fact, I think what it was. So I'd set this to discharge, and the other batteries to recharge. So I was trying to drain the floor battery that was the battery I originally drug over here on by episode 10. Or no, by episode 5 it was over here. This was the first large grid battery I think I placed. And I managed to sort of relay it all the way in the spot in the floor. And this episode I've drained it of power to grind it out, and in the process, because these are all on recharge, I don't have power. So the frantic flashing that probably is a seizure warning to someone, that comes about because everything gets just enough juice from the wind turbines to power on, and then loses that juice and dies. So yeah, that was fun. If we look, so we have our launch tube that was here in the last episode, but I didn't come look at the base because I'm a doofus. And, how much of this do we have? So we have the base built now. This episode is the first of the two-part finishing touches, which was sort of I just need to build the base. And that's something I've found with, well, it's life in general, really, but especially in Space Engineers, where you don't need, comfortable and designed living spaces. You can just need the functional bits, and then you can do everything you can do. you tend to put off projects like this to do other stuff. You know, building vehicles to solve challenges. I am, as many of you may have noticed, very easily distracted. So you kind of just have to bunker down sometimes and be like, I am, for this, building this base. This is my project now. And I think especially when you're recording a series where you're trying to entertain the public, saying, okay, I'm just going to buckle down and build this thing, it's kind of tough because, you know, you need a variety of content. Now, we actually, we have the bedrooms. Oh no, I think well, no, there was a separate save, or was there? This may be a case where this is actually the end of the finishing touches part 2. And essentially what's happened is I recorded one episode, realized it was 2 hours long, and was like, okay, I'm gonna make this 2 episodes. That happens from time to time. So I think this is actually the end of episode 2 where the base is fully built. You can see our little window things, which I thought was a cute little touch. I'd seen this, was that, Survival Unlikely by Splitsy, who most of you watching this have probably heard of, did this on their moon base thing. And I thought, you know, that'll be a fun little, since I have these windows in the beds, that now I could do this with the new beds now. Doesn't matter. Series is ending. I thought this was a cute little way to give a reason for these windows, because it's something that's always irked me about this bed block, the original, aside from the fact that it looks very uncomfortable. Having the window make sense in very specific situations, but most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time you're like, why would I have a window here? And it actually impedes things sometimes where you're like, okay, well, I'd love to put, you know, one here, one bed here, one bed here, so they're like little tubes you crawl in. But then this person's bed is looking through a window into this person's bed, and that's just not very, you know, that's not a good workplace. So, yeah. All this to say, new beds, very good. They're still not super comfortable looking. I guess you have to really tough it in space. Is there anything whole ship that's not blown up yet? Indoor fog. So we're now up to pretty much now. This is episode 60, A Machine for Mining, which I can start talking about that name. It kind of feeds into this whole endeavor. So with my analytics, seeing view counts on videos, you guys really like mining. That's what people come here for. And I think part of it is, I mean, that's space engineers. That's the game loop, is mine things. And you build different vehicles to do it in ideally more efficient ways or more interesting ways. You know, it's kind of the one lever you have that drives you to experiment. Because at least in vanilla, there's no real combat, there's no threats, there's not too much to do with survival. It's kind of just dig things simulator. So this vehicle, there's sort of a lot to it. I think this is actually, it's odd to say because it's just been built and I've only used it once or like twice. But I think this is the coolest vehicle I've built in the series. Just because of all the little stuff it does, how it works, and it's just something different. It's something, and I had an idea and I tried it and it works in a cool way. So it's a little small grid miner that's essentially just a drill. It connects up to this cargo thing, and when it's connected it can drive around. It's making use of the new smaller wheels, but not the new smaller wheel blocks. making use of the event controllers for different automated functions, which are awesome. Yeah, this was... Honestly, the wheels are too small. Should have gone with 3x3s. But I was surprised how well this sort of design worked. Because the whole concept is that flying a miner with all the ore in it is expensive on power. It's less expensive to roll it along the ground, because once you get up to speed, you can coast. And then you just have to apply little bits of power. So, I was like, well, how could I design this? It was sort of loosely based off the idea of like the cargo drones from the AI update that Keen created. I liked the idea of, I have a base, I have a removable cockpit ship thing that goes, does a task, takes the ore back to where I need to go. And, consequently, I had ore I needed to get. As if I'm right, this is cobalt, which I think I needed some for the carrier. Do I have I do. Can I see... I can see the base, but I can't see any carrier construction yet. I may have just been building up resources before starting, I can't remember. Yeah, this was a cool little design, and it's something that I think a lot, this isn't really a tutorial series, but this as a concept of a ship is something a lot of people could use. And, mentioning earlier, so this episode had nearly 700 views. Most of the others in the series get like 150-ish. So, by comparison, Machine for Mining brings in people. Last but not least, we come to the carrier. So, actually, I'm way out. Where am I? Let's bring the camera over. So, I want to get kind of a unique view, being that we can't fly in the series. But yeah, the carrier. So, I kind of want to talk about the carrier and the drone armada idea. I can't remember exactly when or how it came to me, but I actually... So when I destroyed the skyship, which, yes, I didn't destroy it, something shot me, but I made those somethings to come and shoot me. In fact, I think I sent the command to spawn them in specifically because I wanted the base to defend itself more than it can by itself. When the skyship was destroyed, I already had the idea for the carrier. I think my idea for the drones came when I captured that drone, the flying saucer, and added my own AI bits to it. I was like, ooh, you know what? I could build drones and do... I think I even said in that episode, I like the idea of having drones fight for me. And it sort of grew... I don't know if the carrier... Maybe the drones came first. The carrier came out of the idea of, well, how do I get all those drones there? What if I had an aircraft carrier? And so I built one. It was an intentional plan for longer... From before I actually created it in the canon world, I'd had the idea of I'd like to build a drone army and drive it over to the enemy base with the carrier and have a big old end battle between my drones and BuddyBot drones, and I've got to get to the base and all that. That's all coming. You'll see that in 2 weeks, once I make it. But, yeah, that's sort of where the carrier started, and honestly, for being a little, ungainly, and it definitely looks more blocky than, I'd kind of like. I'd generally, if I'm like really designing a ship, I'd try to stylize it more than this is stylized. But for what it is, I think it works well. And I think it's a fun unique way and a unique thing for this series. This is sort of the penultimate, everything I've done has led up to building this so I can go and attack the base and defeat the buddy bots. That's the story. Will it play out like that? You'll just have to stick around and see. But I figured this would be kind of in the vein of not really that serious. I'm kind of doofy and fun. This would be a good way to do something unique, make the series stand out a little bit, do something I've not seen other people do before. And I don't know. It kind of just came together out of ideas I had for that would be kind of neat. Let's try it. Which is how this whole series has run, and all of my life has run to a degree, if we really look at it that way. So I'm looking forward to seeing this thing in action. And I can say that because I've not yet recorded the finale. I'm working on various stuff because there's going to be a lot to it. But we will all see very soon the carrier's shining moments and what comes next. So yeah, that was a little behind the scenes retrospective on the creation of Marooned on Triton. I hope you enjoyed seeing back all the way to the beginning and getting some of my sort of insider, well, creator, I'm as inside as you can get, getting some of my thought process and hearing a bit of how I made decisions, why I made decisions, and the sort of background creation of this series. The finale will be in 2 weeks from the airing of this. Obviously, if you're watching these back in the future, probably already happened, hopefully. So, yeah, 2 weeks from this episode going live, it'll go. Consequently, that is I think, if I timed it right, that is the 3-year anniversary of this channel, based on when my first video was uploaded. So, yeah, that's kind of neat. Again, a lot of this, in this series, I've found things just line up and work, and you just go with it. So, all that coming in the future. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Feel free to become a member if you want to support and encourage my stupid behavior. And until next week, or 2 weeks from now, bye-bye. Cut. Somebody give me a coffee.